Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. We're going to continue our playthrough of Scythe. You can see here my poor character has been killed off. It's back at the home base. I've got a whole bunch of mechs here making a nice perimeter around the side of my large group of individuals, which is not that large. The yellow faction has kind of just slithered its way from its home base all the way up to the factory and now has a decent hold on the factory. We haven't really gone into any type of combat with the yellow faction just yet, but it's something that likely is going to have to happen in order to win, and I'm going to have to try to take away some of their territories so that I can knock down some of the points that they can get at the end of the game. As we know, the wonderful factions are not going to lose any popularity at any point in time, so they will always be getting 4, 3, and 2 across the 3 different types of ways to gain points in the game, which is involving stars, involving controlling territories, and a number of resources. So it's to my advantage to try to at least knock them down a couple pegs on what areas they control. So we're going to start this playthrough off with me going through my turn, and we'll start that right now. Here we go with my turn. Now I have a number of different actions I can take. I got one over here which has already been taken. I cannot move. I could try to bolster, trade, produce, or potentially do my factory action, which I've never done before. Now, here's the thing. I'm trying to do a top and bottom on this action, but I don't know if it's actually going to work real well. If I go for a bolster, which is great because it would get my power going back up the track again, which is never a bad thing, then the downside is currently I do not have 2 steel in order to get my last mech, which would give me a star. So what I need to do is work towards, because this seems to be the easiest way for me to gain a star, would be to get my mech out next. The second easiest thing would be to go after my enlist, because I have the necessary resources way up here in order to pay for that particular enlisting twice to be able to uncover these, but it's going to take me it could take me almost 3 rounds or 4 rounds to get there. So this is the quickest one I could do for sure. So the other option here is going for a trade, which will give me 2 resources. This could potentially open up the ability to get the mech that I want to get out, but I can't do the bottom action. And over here, you can actually, and this is something I want to make everyone aware of too, if you go into something like this and you say you want to do a produce action, you don't have to go ahead and do that produce action up top. I don't have the power to spend, I don't have the popularity. If I don't want to do the produce action, I can still just choose this section and I can do the top and bottom. So essentially I'm able to go ahead and say I don't want to do this top section, I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom section and enlist. And this is something I might want to do because if I go ahead and enlist, that knocks away one of these, and then I'm one more close away to actually going ahead and being able to get another star out. Plus, by going ahead and enlisting, I also gain some coins, and I could potentially end up either gaining coins from the Automa, or I could gain power, and power would be really good seeing as my power is so bad. So that's something I'm really leaning on. The other one here is the action that I got through the factory, which if I pay a resource, I can get a card to bolster, which would bump me up on the track twice. And on top of it, I'd be able to move one individual or one of my individuals, whether it be a worker or character or mech, up to 2 spaces. That one I was thinking would be a great idea, except for the fact that I just realized that the only places that I'd really want to move would maybe be to go into the white faction's territory and knock one of their white workers out. The problem with that logic is that currently on the section where where I would check to see if I gather any resources from any workers that are killed is right there, and it's completely barren, which means I gain nothing from killing the worker except lose popularity, which wouldn't be worth it. Whereas if I was to go after a worker from the yellow faction, I could potentially, if I look back at one that wasn't used for combat, actually even with them I can't. So it wouldn't even be good either way. Okay, so with all that being said, this is not going to be an effective turn. It's going to be one of those situations where I'm either doing the top action or bottom action. So let's go ahead and choose one of them right now. So I'm going to go ahead on my turn. I'm going to choose to produce. However, I'm not actually going to produce. I'm going to enlist. I can choose to do the top or bottom. I'm going to go ahead and just do the bottom because I do not want to do the top, and I honestly can't because I don't have enough power anyway, and there'd be no gain there for me because of it. Although I could gain resources, which potentially could give me points in the game, I just don't have the power to spend right now. However, I can spend 3 food to enlist, which I definitely will do. So we're going to come over here, and we're going to go to a worker-controlled territory, grab 3 resources. We're going to spend those resources. By doing so, I'm going to enlist. I get to choose which one of these I want to get rid of. I definitely am not in the need for coins, as I have currently 14 I'm more likely in the need for power. So I'm going to take this one off here, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to choose to place this on the 2+ popularity. So what that's going to do for me is going to jump me up the popularity track to 6, which puts me on the border edge of going up to the next section where all of my stars, controlled areas, and resources at the end of the game will go from 3 to 4, 2 to 3, and 1 to 2, which is awesome. It's going to give me some extra points. So with that being said, I'm 1 away now from being able to get the star from the enlist, and now 1 away from getting the mech out. That's really good. Don't want to forget, I also get 2 coins here, so that's fantastic. So I'll grab those 2 coins. I'm going to put them in my area here. So now I have a total of 13, 14, 15, 16 coins. Not bad. That's going to wrap up my turn. We're going to move over to the yellow faction. Okay, let's see what the yellow faction is going to do. We've got ourselves a non-attacking mech move. So what we're going to be doing for that one is a couple of quick steps here. So non-attacking mech move, we've got 3 mechs on the board right now for the yellow faction. So they're the only ones that can be applied to this particular action. As you can see, the last one is still waiting in reserve. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the one closest to the Automa's base. As you can see, there is none, as we've always had one at the base, usually, up to this point. We don't have one now. So we're basically going for the one which is in normal reading order. So basically, the one closest to the Automa's base would be either this one or this one, because both of these are 1, 2, 3, 4 spots away, essentially, to the home base. So it's either one of these, but we're doing reading order. Reading order is left to right down, through the rows, and so it would hit the guy on the factory first. So now that we know which one's going to be chosen, the valid hexes it can go is in the neighborhood of any Automa unit or in the neighborhood of an Automa's base. No enemy units can be present. No Automa combat unit can be present in the space it goes. Then we're going to go ahead, we're going to pick up the selected unit, which I've just done right now. We're going to find a valid hex, and, well, a valid hex could be here. It could be here. It could be, there's a number of different spaces that essentially it could go. Here would actually be, well, actually, if it needs to be next to an enemy combat unit, here, here, and here, I guess, would be the 3. But in terms of it being in the neighborhood of its own faction, here and here are the only valid hexes now. So in order to figure out which one it's going to be, because there's 2 of them, it's going to be the shortest distance from an enemy combat unit, and the tiebreaker is the closest to the factory. So essentially, closest to the factory is this guy. He's just going to basically go back to where he was. So this is one of those situations where you're choosing a mech, you're actually taking it off the board and picking it up based on the Automa's instructions, and then you're literally placing it right back in its same spot again. That can happen, and you might think you've done something wrong when you do that. You might think you've broken the game, or you put the individual in the mech in the wrong place. Don't be worried about that. That does happen, and it's normal. In this case, you can tell because of the way the Automa is written, it's trying to essentially secure the factory. It wouldn't try to, a non-attacking mech move wouldn't have a mech just run off into the distance to go over here and leave the factory wide open. Its primary focus is staying on the factory. Unless we got like an attacking mech move, which would be different. The mech may go into this area or something else may happen. So that was pretty much it. That's a pretty straightforward card. We didn't have to do much of anything there. So going on to the Automa Get Stuff section, sadly this is actually the yellow faction. So as you can see, we're playing the yellow faction, which is buried in a bunch of coins, and they're going to gain exactly that. They're going to gain a coin. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put 1 coin in their area, sadly, which is going to give them an endgame point. They're also going to bolster twice. So they're going to jump up from 12 to 14. This doesn't matter if they hit 16 because they've already got the star from that. They can't get it twice. So basically this last one, or sorry, not this last one, but the last one here in the second row is sadly a deployment of either your character, if it happens to be on the board, which it isn't. At board, I mean like the faction mat. It's not. It's actually in play. Or if it's not the character that's going to go in, it's going to be a mech. So their last mech is actually going to be placed in their home base. So now they've actually put all their mechs into play. That's too bad. The next thing that's going to happen is we got super lucky because we are actually going to be able to enlist. because we actually, or not enlist, but get the bonus from enlisting. So because another player got the enlist bonus, and we have actually unlocked that, we're going to go ahead and go up one on the track. So that's great. We got a free one. Downside being they get to bump up their star tracker to the next space, and that's going to resolve the yellow faction's turn. Pretty straightforward. Let's move on to the white faction. Okay, white faction, what kind of pain and suffering are you throwing at me now? We've got ourselves, the top action here is, okay, so we ignore that symbol unless we're playing in the Automata level, but we're playing Automa level difficulty, normal. So this would say normally in Automata, chuck the card. We've already talked about that before. This is not the faction currently in place. We can ignore the ones in brackets. This is very similar to what we got over here, which is a non-attacking mech move. So we're going to be going ahead and doing one of those. So what does that entail? Same situation as we had before. Closest to Automa's base, nobody. The only mech in play currently is this one for the white faction, so this is going to be the obvious one to pick up. Valid hexes are going to be anything in the neighborhood of its own white workers, and it has to be next to a another combat unit. And as you can see, there's really nowhere else I can actually place this mech that wouldn't be... well, actually, the only other place I can place this mech is going to be back where it is, because... First of all, it wants to be closest to the factory anyway. So this is it's going to be picked up and then put right back down again. So simple move, nothing happens there. Then we're going to come over here to the next section, which is a bonus there for the bolster if it's that faction, which it's not. That faction is not in play. But we are going to get a coin, sadly, or not we, but the Automa is going to gain a coin. So one more coin for them. I may actually do this right now. I might just transfer out 5 of these blue for another 5 because I'm running low on the singles. So they got 15 coins total. Next up is, oh no, the character's coming back. So the character that I killed off is going back to the home base, so they're deploying back. That's no good. Good news of the day, oh, not a good news. It's an enlist of a coin. I do not have that enlist bonus, so I won't be getting that. And then we're going to go ahead with the star tracker and move it here. Now you can see the next time the white faction goes, it's going to get a star. That's okay because they've still got 4 stars to put out. The yellow faction is what I'm scared of because they're really pushing everybody right now with 4 stars in the lead on the chart, whereas I got 3. So kind of in a fight with them more so than the white faction at this point. That's going to end the round. We're going to come right back around to my turn. So I just want to give you guys a little heads up on what I'm thinking here in terms of what I want to do next. First off, the biggest thing might be to go ahead and get some extra resources to build a mech. I could do that by doing a trade and then do the mech thing later. I want to do this action mainly. This is the one that's the most important to me because I can do the top and bottom, and that's a huge benefit for me. Really the one that I'm kind of focusing in on the most. The move action sounds good. It could be useful. The downside with the move action right now is that a lot of my movement is stuck because I don't want to enter combat because of how bad my power is. But if I did some movement into some of these workers and took them over, I could potentially gain some steel or gain some oil. The positive or the downside of that is that currently the white faction does have a resource available if I kill off one of its workers, but for just 1 resource, it's not worth losing a popularity for 1 resource. It would be worth it if it was 2, because then I could potentially go after the mech thing here later on. So I'd be able to move and kind of gain some steel from doing some movement in combat, but it's not going to work. So I kind of got to go the long way around here. So what I may have to do is actually do a trade action, which is the first time I've been doing this all game, just to pay a coin and grab the 2 resources that I need, which is steel, just to move forward. I think that's really what I'm going to do here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take the large action marker. The only other option I had was this one here, but this just bolsters me. I can do this later. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to pay 1 coin from my supply, and I'm going to grab the 2 steel that I need. I'm definitely going to place that steel somewhere with some protection, so it's going to go with the other mech and all of the food over here. There we go. And because I'm not doing the bottom section of this, I don't have to worry about it because I'm not building anything. So that's really going to wrap up my turn that quickly. But next turn, we're going to be going into here, building a mech and bolstering, and that's going to really help us out. Maybe put us in a position to start doing some combat. Okay, yellow faction, let's see what you got for me. So top section of this card, we've got, ooh, it's an attack move versus combat unit with a 1 power or higher. So that basically means, I'm knocking stuff over on my board here, that basically means that if they have a power of 1 or more, which they do, the white faction is 9, they're going to go ahead with a attack move versus a combat unit. So they're going to try to come after one of my combat units or any combat unit on the board. So the first thing you're going to do is make sure that that condition's met, which it was. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to find the Automa combat unit that's closest to the home base. So that's going to be this yellow one right here. So this is the one that we're going to be choosing. Valid hexes of where it can go is going to be anything that either contains an enemy unit, it's in the neighborhood of your Automa's other units, or in the neighborhood of your base. So essentially that's going to be this one because it's in the neighborhood of these guys, or this guy because it's in the neighborhood of these two. There's nobody else. Even my workers up here are safe because this attack is against a combat unit. The only combat units are characters and mechs. That would be this white one and this blue one. So the thing is, right now, is which one is it going to go after? Well, the next step is to just take this mech off the board because we know we're going to be moving it. After that, we got to find the valid hex. We know it's one of those two. Next up, it's going to be based on who has the fewest, which hex has the fewest enemy combat units. Both of them have 1, so that doesn't resolve anything. The next thing is a tiebreaker, so closest to factory. Well, the factory's right here, which is still a dead tie between the two of them because they're both 1 away from the factory. That doesn't help us. The second tiebreaker is the reading order, and there is where we get screwed because we go left to right from the top of the board down, and that's going to land at this blue guy right here. So this guy is coming from the home base, and he's going to land in my space, and he's going to come after me, which is really terrible because the white faction got a little bit lucky because they went south on me. Obviously, being higher up on the board is bad. So if I'm playing this game, maybe coming up from Canada down was a bad idea. I keep calling it Canada. It's just the way I'm going. So anyway, we have to resolve a battle here. Here's where I stand. I have 1 power. I do not want to put a lot into this battle. I don't even really care all that much about this battle. At the end of the day, I just want to survive this battle, and I don't want to be destroyed. So the biggest thing is I'm not planning on putting a lot in because I'm hoping to get maybe a combat card back. So my combat cards are like over here, and I'm hoping that I'll get one back because I lose. So I got to put something in to get that. So if that makes sense to you guys, I'll try to show you what I mean. So I'm going to take my power dial here, and I'm going to set it to 0. I do not want to spend the 1 power I have because I'm going to get destroyed anyway. And I'm going to just go ahead to my cards here. I'm going to take a 2 power. I'm going to put it right like this. That's all I'm spending. As long as you're spending power, whether it comes from the cards or from your power area here, you'll gain a card back if you lose in battle. I'm going to lose regardless. I'd rather just try to get a better card. That's really all I can hope for at this point. The Automa now is going to attack. I know they're going to put up a crazy amount of power. The only thing is yellow faction has 0 cards to put in, so if they pull a card that says they're supposed to go ahead and put cards in, they won't be able to. But let's see what they get. So they flip this over, and as you can see, oh my goodness, if they had had the cards. So currently they sit between 8 and 13 because they're at 9. So they're putting 6 power in, and they would have taken 2 combat cards at random and put them in the pile as well, but they don't have any. So they're just coming in with 6. So yeah, like even with 6, I don't think there was anything I could have done, even if I had known that in advance, which you would never know, to beat them. Because even though I have this bonus of -2, I would have to lose a power. That would drop them to 4. My highest card is a 3. And attackers win, ties anyway, and even though that's not a tie. So it's just bad news all around. So I played it right. I didn't put in anything too special, so I'm going to get this discarded. I've obviously lost the combat, so my mech's going to go back to the home base. This yellow faction now owns this space, and now they're really just basically owning this entire side of the board. It's just complete terror. My dial can go away because I didn't use it. I also get to stay at 1. I do gain a combat card back. Oh my gosh, it's a 2. I'm so happy. I can't tell you how happy I am right now. Hold on while I pause the video and punch a wall. No, I'm joking. Okay, so we've got a 2 back after I spent a 2. That was not what I was hoping for. Shoot. Okay, so they did go ahead and initiate a combat, and they beat me. So because they won the combat, they get to put a star. up here in their second position for combat. So guys, we are now 1 star away from the game ending. It just comes down to the yellow faction, and as you can see, that's going to trigger, let me see how this is going to work. They've already gotten a star from here, so it can't come from the power track. It cannot come from combat because they've already got both stars. So really, we're on a timer now, knowing that the only way they can gain their last star is to go down the track here. That's too bad. So we're going to be running out of time, which is bad. So let's continue through their turn here because they weren't just doing combat, but that was the first row. Second row is they're going to gain stuff. Oh my gosh, they're gaining coins. They get an extra coin because they are the yellow faction. So they're going to gain 2 coins this turn. That's brutal. And then down here, a combat card is given. And thankfully, guys, we have that open. So we get a combat card. Please don't be a 2. Are you kidding me? Well, if we're looking at if we were playing a game where we were trying to get a complete set, we're doing good. We've got lots of 2s. Those are fantastic. But look, they're starting to go, so that's good. That means that this Star Tracker thing will not move, so that's good. I'll put the combat card they use back on top like this, and that's kind of how I'm doing it so you guys can understand that the combat cards are laid that way, regular cards up and down, keeps things neat and organized. That's basically it. That's going to cover their turn, and now we're going to move on to the white faction. All right, here we go with the white faction. Let's see what they're up to. So, oh dear. That does not trigger. That's not the faction color. So we go on to the next one, which is an attack move versus a worker. So that can happen. So we'll go ahead and figure that one out. So attack moves versus a worker. How does this work? So closest to the Automa base, first off. So that's going to be this guy right here. Is basically going to be the combat unit we're choosing. So the wonderful character is going to be coming back into play for the white faction. Valid hexes are going to be in the neighborhood of any Automa unit from the white faction, of course. And it has to contain an enemy worker. So that's one of the biggest things. So here's an enemy worker here. Here's an enemy worker here. Here's an enemy worker here. I have an enemy worker up here, but I have a mech in there. And the area cannot have a combat unit in it. So because of that, I'm protecting them. I'm safe. So the only ones it's going to go after are basically these 3 right here. So that's good news. It's going to kind of start messing around with the yellow faction. So I've set myself up there smart. And hopefully the white faction will start helping me out. Maybe we can team up and start taking the yellow faction down together in the last stages here, if we even have time to do it. We're going to go ahead now, pick up the selected combat unit, which is going to be the character. I just killed off a worker there. And we're going to find a valid hex. It has to be the place with the most resources. Neither of these 3 have the most resources because Automa doesn't use resources. We only get to gain resources if I'm the one that kills that worker. But if Automa is killing a worker, the resources don't matter because they don't use them. So that doesn't matter for the Automa, and it can be 0 because, of course, that's normal. Tiebreakers closest to the factory. So we do have 1, 2, 3. They're all within 1, and the closest to the factory is this guy. So this worker is being killed off, and the character is landing here. So that's pretty good because that pits a whole bunch of these guys real close together, and this worker has now been killed off. So this worker is going to be removed from the game, and is going to go back to the player mat, like so. Okay, so now that we've dealt with that, and again, there's no star given for killing off a worker. It has to be a combat against a combat unit for the white faction to get a star, so no star for them. Coming over here, they would go down to the next section, which is 3 bolster. So they can get a star if they get to the top here, so they're up to 12 now. They also gain a coin, so we're going to give them a coin, which is basically a point for them. And I get to gain a combat card, and I'm praying that it's not another 2. Yes, it is another 2, because that's what I do. I gain 2s. I've got 2s for days. If I could put 350 mechs in the same spot, you know, that'd be great. I cannot believe how many 2s I pulled out of that deck. I think the game's trying to screw me. Let me see here. And then they gain a star. Oh, yeah, sorry. They gain a star on the star tracker, which inherently gives them a star. So they are actually going to get a star. So one of their stars actually goes up here. And just like that, they now have 3 stars and have tied us. Yikes. Okay, so things are progressing pretty fast. So that's going to be the end of this round. We're going to come right back around to my turn. Okay, time to pick my action. And as you guys can see, if I wanted to go and bother the white faction for resources from the cheap, I'd only gain 1. It's not worth my time. I'd much rather come here, probably bolster and get my other mech out. I think that makes the most sense. So we're going to come over here. We're going to choose this action. I got to pay 1 coin to do this bolster action. So I just paid that. I'm going to gain 3. So it's going to jump me from 1 to 4, which gives me some options when fighting, but not much because of how terrible my cards are. Come down here, we're going to pay 2 steel. So we're going to grab 2 steel from back here that's hiding, and we're going to put the steel away. This is going to unleash this mech, which is now going to allow us the ability to move across rivers to forests and mountains. So it's going to give us more freedom to move on the board. The mech comes into play along with 3 coins. So I'm also going to take 3 coins, and I'm going to drop that in my area here, which is, I'm trying to keep everything organized. I've got, what was this, a 10, a 1, and so I've got 17. That's actually pretty good. And then a whole bunch of combat cards that are useless. And then this mech here, I get to place wherever I want as long as it's next to some workers. So that's where things get interesting. I'm kind of thinking that it might make... Ugh, this is tough. So there's so many different places I could potentially drop this mech. I really need it... I really need it... I might need to kind of, this is, and so here's the thing, I can't drop it here because there's no workers here. So I have to either put it here or put it here. So what I'm thinking is, if I put it here, I can do kind of a combat thing where I maybe have 2 mechs go in at the same, against the same other mech, and then use more of my 2s. Because I can use 2 combat cards together to try to fight them off. It could be tough, though, because of how insane... the insane amount of... oh, actually, I just remembered. I did not knock down the yellow faction's power track after their attack. Alright, so I figured out what the heck I did wrong there, and that was when it was an 8 to 13 range on the yellow attack against my my mech here, where the yellow guy ran in and just destroyed me. I was supposed to knock off 6 power, so I should be, so they should be down from 14 to 8. Not that it makes too much of a difference, but it does. So you want to watch that, but that should have been down to 8. That's something I missed, so we cleaned that up perfectly. We've also put my mech, which I was in the middle of my turn. I deployed my mech, which is great. I gained my coins and everything, but the one thing I did not do is gain a star. So now I gain a star because all of my mechs are out on the board. So way up here, there's a mech symbol times 4. And now I have 4 stars, and I'm just 1 behind the yellow player. That's going to basically conclude my turn. I paid 1, 3 bolster up the track. Down here I paid 2 steel to build my last mech. I gained 3 coins, put the mech on the board, and also put a star up in the corner. That's going to wrap up my turn. Next up is the yellow turn. Not looking forward to that. Alright, here we go with the yellow faction. Let's see what they're going to do. Flipping it over, and we've got, ooh, if we were Automa, we'd be skipping. This one here is a, oh no, that's not good. That's an attack move versus a combat unit if they have a power of 8. And the yellow faction does have a power of 8, so that's tragic. So they are going to be going ahead with that, so we'll be doing that one and resolving it. So we're going to go ahead and find the combat unit which is closest to the yellow faction's base. So as you can see, there's nobody at the base. So the only one, the closest ones to the base for the yellow faction is going to be, let's see here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the character is out of the running, but these 2 mechs are valid. So it's going to be either one of them. So how do you determine which one it is? It's going to be the one that basically is in reading order, as we've known. So it's going to be this guy right here on the factory is going to be selected. And we're going to be picking something for valid hexes now that's in the neighborhood of any Automa unit for the yellow faction, or in the neighborhood of the Automa's base, which would be down here. And it also has to contain an enemy unit, or enemy combat unit. So again, a mech or a character. So if you're taking a look at these 2 individuals, we know that this is the one we're selecting. So what is around our current units, that is a combat unit, it would be this one right here. And I'm just going to take a quick look. I guess technically it'd also be this guy right here. And that's it. So it's just these 2 for this guy. So the good thing for me is that these mechs aren't activating, otherwise I'd be going after my blue ones. It's this guy that's activating, so it's going to be one of these 2 guys. So how do we determine which one it is? First, we're going to go ahead and pick up the selected mech that we've got. We're going to choose the destination hex. It has to be a valid hex, so it's going to be one of these 2 spots. It has to have the fewest enemy combat units. Both of these are 1, so that doesn't matter. Next is closest to the factory. These 2 are both equal distance from the factory. It does not matter. Second is reading order. That's going to be the mech. So the mech is going to be moving into the other mech spot, and we are going to have our first battle of Automa versus Automa coming up right now. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I don't know how this is going to work out, but it's going to end up being a draw from either of the Automa decks. We're going to find out how much power they're using. The white faction, as we know, has a ton of combat cards, so if they happen to get the ability to pull combat cards, it's really going to help them. So I think in combat, the white faction has the leg up, and that's actually really good for us because we really want to thin out the yellow faction's presence on the board. So this is actually kind of working out. Even though we screwed the white faction over and really destroyed most of them, now they're going to come in and hopefully help us to defeat them as they're a little stronger at combat. So we'll see how things go though. So here's the one for the yellow, seeing as they're the attacker. We'll go with them first. Again, right now we're at 8 for power. And if we're at 8, we're using 7 power, as you can see in the bottom there. From 8 to 13 uses 7 power, but 2 combat cards, but that will not apply because the yellow faction doesn't have any. So the most or the biggest attack they can make is just 7, not very high. So it's likely that they're going to get pummeled here, and that's good. Here's hoping. So the white faction is going to come into it with a 7 as well. That's awesome, but a combat card, and that's going to automatically swing them the win because no matter what combat card I choose here, it's going to bolster their ability to attack. So I'm going to take a combat card from the center. They're adding 2 to it. That's pretty much the kind of card that you'd want to use if you were a human player in this situation. So basically that's an easy win. So there we go. The white faction has destroyed the yellow faction's mech. Awesome. Now, what we're going to do next is the yellow, or I should say, let's go back here. So the yellow faction initiated this fight, and the white faction actually won the fight. So what we're going to do first off is the yellow faction is going to be destroyed. So this goes back to the player or the faction mat. The next thing is we're going to drop down all of the power. So we have an 8 here, we used 7, so we're going down to 1, and then we have a 12 going down 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is awesome for me because it's dragged their power down and given me a shot at fighting the yellow guys because they're super weak right now. Even with my pathetic 2 cards, this couldn't have worked out better. Plus the factory's open. That's a spot I'd like to be on at the end of the game if it's possible. I don't need it for cards, but it's worth points for controlling it. So if it's possible, something to think about. But of course, the white faction could still come in here with a character and get a factory card because they haven't got one yet. In terms of have we resolved everything, there's no resource gathering to talk about in this particular case between them because both Automas don't use resources, so we'd skip over that. If I was part of the battle, we'd be talking about that. We've gone ahead and spent 1 combat card with the white faction. Because they won the battle, they do not get a combat card, and the yellow faction never used a combat card, so they do not get to draw one. They were on the defense and or on the attack, sorry, but they didn't actually use one or spend. Actually, no, that's not true. I guess they would actually gain a combat card because they did spend power. So we're going to go ahead now. We're going to grab them a combat card. My mistake. So they're the ones that lost. This combat card will be the first one that they've actually received. So this is going to sit right here. I'll put it here for now. So now in the future they'll have something. We don't know what it is though. Okay, so that's going to resolve that, and I think we can move on to the rest of the yellow faction's turn. All right, going back to the yellow faction here to finish off the rest of its turn here. I'm just going to move the combat card to use the side. We're going to follow up the top here. So we already did the top section. That's done. You'll see here this emblem does match the yellow faction's thing. So again, they're going to get a coin here, which is too bad, plus another coin. So it's a coin for being the yellow faction plus an additional coin. So they're going to be gaining 2 coins, so that's really not good because that's 2 points for them. And a worker's coming out. So one of their workers that was taken off the board will be showing up here in the home base. Next up, popularity is going up, and because we have that unlocked, we get to go up in popularity, which means, guys, we've just crested over that line, which is awesome. So we're up to 7. When we thought we weren't popular, we're finally gaining some popularity, and that is going to do it. And even better, the yellow faction only has 1 star remaining to place before the end of the round, or into the game, I should say, is triggered, and they didn't get a star move. So it's going to sit right here, giving us more time, which is awesome. They'll put the combat card back on top, and we have resolved the yellow faction's turn. All right, white faction, here we go. Let's see what they do. So top section is the blue faction. We are not them, so we won't be doing that. Second one over here is a non-attacking mech move. We've become very familiar with this one, so let's just go through the motions on this. So first off, it's going to be the Automa mech that's closest to the Automa's base. This is for the white faction, so here's the base. The only combat unit in play that's a mech is right here. So that's the one we're going to be choosing. That was pretty easy. It's going to end up landing in a neighborhood adjacent to any other unit in the game that it controls. Can't have any enemy units in that location, and no Automa combat unit other than the one selected can be there. So we're going to pick up the valid mech in this case, take them off the board, choose a valid hex. It has to be the shortest distance from enemy combat unit. And then it has to be tiebreakers closest to the factories. But at the end of the day, this is the closest, so it's going to go to the factory. Now, a couple things I want to square away with this. When the mech moves into here, they do not gain a factory card for having their mech in the factory. They have to have their character in the factory in order to gain that that particular card. So at some point down the line, the character might move into this space. Then the factory card would be drawn for the white faction. As of right now, they just control it, and it's worth 3 points at the end of the game, so that's actually worth something for the Automa to be there, which is why those cards drive it towards the factory, because it's a decent point value at the end of the game. But that's going to do it for the non-attacking mech move, so we'll come back over here, and what else do they get? Oh, they get a card. How surprising. So we're going to grab a combat card for them. We cannot look at it, so we'll put it on top of the deck. Next up, we've got a coin. Okay, so we'll be giving them a coin. Let's see what that involves. And extra points, so what is that, 15, 17 now for them? They're getting up there. The next one here on the bottom is they're going to gain a mech or a character. So the character's on the board, so they can't gain a character, so they're going to actually gain a mech. So the mech is going to show up on their home base. So they're finally starting to get a little bit more backup because they were severely beaten down by us. I love it. So that's essentially going to be it, except we have the enlist, and guess what, guys? I get a power from that enlist, so that is going to bump me up the track 1, putting me in tie with the white faction, which is awesome for likely an upcoming future combat. They are going to move up the track 1 star, so now they're getting even closer to placing their next star. They still have 3 more to place, so they're quite a ways behind, but we're getting near the end of the game for sure. Yellow faction is the one I'm scared of the most, but we're doing pretty good. So that's going to end this round. We're now going to move back over to my turn. All right, I got my turn all figured out. I think this is going to be pretty awesome. We're going to move over here to the take a move action. So I get to do 3 different units. I get to go 1 space each, but my characters and my mechs can go an extra space. So how we're going to do this in order to get an objective, what I'm trying to gun for, guys, is I'm trying to gun for this one right here I was talking about way earlier on the playthrough. Control at least 5 territories surrounding the same lake. This will get me a star as well as bolster the amount of territories I control for endgame scoring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a worker from this area over here move to here. This is across land, so there's 1 movement done. So that's 1 of my movements spent. The next one is going to have a worker cross a lake over to this location here. My workers can do that. Oops, I just knocked all my guys everywhere. Because of their awesome ability to swim across rivers. So they can go across anywhere as long as they don't land in a lake area. And this is considered a river, so we're jumping across for 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my remaining worker and my remaining mech, and I'm going to move them for the last space. I'm going to go in here and for 1 move, and because my worker can come with my mech and my mech can move twice, it's going to be 1 move, and then 1 move through the tunnel over to this space where I'm going to take this guy out. This is going to hurt me because I'm going to end up killing off one of the white people's workers. My popularity is going to go down because of it, which is kind of not good, but it's worth it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up finding out how much steel I get here. Because I took out one of the white workers, there's 1 steel there. So I just gained a steel resource in that location. So not exactly what I wanted, but you can see here that I'm getting myself in position to get that 5 territories very, very soon. So what I can hopefully do next turn is move this mech into this area and have combat with this yellow faction, and then I would be able to finish them off. So that's pretty much it for my turn. If I go down here to the bottom, there's an oil, but I don't have any oil, so I got to skip that. So that's going to wrap up my turn. We'll move on to the yellow faction. All right, moving on to the yellow faction. Let's flip this over and see what we get. So we got a move of a worker. So with this one, we're going to go ahead and choose the closest to the Automa's base, which is yellow. So it's going to be this guy right here. It can be either one of these guys. They're exactly the same. We're going to find a place that's in the neighborhood of any Automa unit. So there's a whole bunch of those guys around. No enemy units can be there, and no Automa workers can be there. So it can go in a place with a mech or a character. Pick up the selected worker that we're using. So we'll go ahead and take that guy off. And we got to find a valid hex in the neighborhood of the most Automa units, not in the neighborhood of enemy combat units. So I cannot place it anywhere in here, because it would be in the neighborhood of this white combat unit. So it can't be anywhere around here, but it has to be in the neighborhood of the most. So if I'm looking around here, this space right here is 2. This space right here wouldn't work. This space is just 1. This space is 1. This space is 2. So far 2 all the way around. If I come all the way over here, this space is 3. So that's doable. This space right here, because you can't work because there's a mech nearby. Can't go here, can't go here. and this space will only be 1. So technically this is the highest area, so at 3, so the worker's going to drop right there. So it's kind of starting to encroach on our area, which is not good. Next up is going to be coins. So, oh my goodness, they're going to be gaining 3 coins this turn. That's a lot. So they just got a ton of points there. And I'm going to bolster. So I'm going to gain from the enlist. My enlist bonus is going to bump me up to 6. So that's really good. And the star doesn't increase again. That's really crazy. So we got super lucky again with another star not increasing. So it's going to give us more time. And that's basically going to be it. All right, moving on to the white one. We've got ourselves... okay, so this is not going to happen because they do not have 8 combat power. They have 5, so they can't do that first one. So they'll move to the move worker, which is very similar to what we just did with the other card. Actually, you know what? This is... It's almost exactly the same card, even with the gaining items. And, ooh, I'm going to go up a popularity. So I guess I'm going to be back up into the 2nd level. That's awesome. So we're going to go ahead and move a worker. It's going to obviously be one that's from here. Can't be near a combat unit in the neighborhood of. So it's going to really reduce a lot of the places that it could potentially drop. In the neighborhood of the most units would probably, there's 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 right here for them. I think that's the highest by far. So it's going to drop like that. So there's where the worker is. Now there's a bunch of valid hexes here. It could have been here, could have been here, 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 could have been up there. But again, it can't be in the neighborhood of anybody bad. And right here, workers don't count as bad. They're not combat units. So this guy's going to drop right here, and that's pretty much it. Coming over here, they're not the yellow faction. They don't gain a coin for that bracketed gain, but they do get a coin for on the opposite side. So we're going to give them a coin. Let's see if I can find one here. So there we go. And next up, they're going to go ahead and gain a worker. So one of the workers is going to come back out into the home base. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead back up on the heart track, or the popularity track, back up into the 2nd category, which is awesome. So those enlist bonuses really help you when you're moving around. And now it's back to my turn, and hopefully, if I'm lucky enough, I can maybe do some combat with the yellow faction and also take the yellow faction down a notch, plus get my objective. That's what I'll be aiming to do in the next one. So my next turn is pretty straightforward. I'm going to be going ahead taking the action marker from this area. You'll notice that this is the move action. I've already spent it, so you can't do this one twice in a row. But thankfully I've got the factory action, which I've never used before, which allows me to pay a resource to gain a combat card and bolster twice. So I'm going to be paying one of these resources from up here, my food, which is the only ones I have right now. Actually, I guess I have the steel too, so I could have gotten rid of that. Actually, you know what? That's in more danger. So I'm going to actually get rid of the steel, because I don't need it anymore. I've got all my mechs built, so I'm going to get rid of the steel resource. That is going to allow me, now that I've paid for it, to gain a combat card, which is awesome. So what do we get? A 3. It's better than a 2, so that's good. We also get to bolster twice, so we're going to go up. Now we're actually running ahead of everybody in terms of power, which is awesome. And then we're going to go down to the bottom here where it says move one individual twice. So this is where I'm going to take this guy right here, this mech. I'm going to leave this guy here. I'm going to move my mech. Actually, no, I'm going to move this mech into here. That would be making a lot more sense. So I'm going to move this guy from the lake into this area. Only need to move 1 space, and now we're going to initiate combat. The awesome thing is the yellow faction is super weak, so they can only use 1 power when they pull their combat. So really it's just going to come down to, do they put a bunch of combat cards in? They only have 1, so at worst case they've got a card here that might be a 5. So at the highest they could have 6, really. So I just have to make sure I've got 6 covered, and then I'm good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a look at my cards first, and I believe 3 is my highest, so I'll be putting a 3 in for sure. The attacker wins combat, so I just have to have 6 and I've got myself covered. So I'll pay 3 from my dial. So that's going to basically drop me down to 5 when I'm all said and done. So it's going to be 3 here from the dial, plus 3 is 6. That's enough for me to kill off the mech and know that I'm safe. And then we're going to go to the pull for them. So this is the yellow faction. So we're going to come here, pull this over, and they're going to go ahead and spend with 0 to 7. They're going to spend 5, but they can only spend what they can spend, which is going to be everything. So they're spending the 1 because that'll give them a combat card. They're going to actually, though they don't even spend a combat card, so they'll spend that 1, but that'll, as long as they're spending from either the track or their cards, they'll get a card when they lose. So boom, they're down to 1, or sorry, down to 0. They're basically just attacking me with 1. I'm attacking with 6. It's an easy win, so I'm going to discard this. This is going to go away. I'm going to dock myself 3, so it'll bring me down to 5, which is good because it still keeps me relatively high. Combat card gets given to this faction here, so the yellow faction now has 2 cards in the future. There were resources here Let me just see here how that's going to work. Actually, well, I guess we'll talk about the resources in a second. For me, I already knocked my 3 down. I won the combat, so this yellow mech is now destroyed and goes back to this location. I'm sitting here now. I actually own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 around a lake area, so I've just completed my objective as well. So what I had done over here is finished. I've done the whole action. So this says, Shore Up the Shore says that at the end of your turn, control at least 5 territories surrounding the same lake at the end of your turn. I've got that. So now I don't need the other objective because you can only ever complete 1. So by doing that, I get to put a star in the objective spot, which is right here. So now I have 5 stars against the yellow faction's 5. So we're very, very close. I've got 1 more star to put out, which I'll probably be getting to do very soon if I can pull it off. And I think that's pretty much it. The only other thing we can square up really quick is just the resources of anything that happened to drop right here. So we'll deal with that right now. So we're going to take the last Automa card that wasn't used for combat and take a look at it. And oh, there's no resources on it. So no resources are given to me. Nothing. It would have been wood, which would have been nice because that could have helped me towards building a building, but I don't get anything there. So that really is going to finish up my turn. But hey, I've got a lot more territories controlled now. I really want to start getting my mech maybe moving. I don't know how I'm going to get that across because I can't move my mech across here in the future, but I'd love to get my guys over to this side of the board and start placing my workers around and start controlling a lot of area. And I also have to deal with the fact that there's a whole bunch of guys here. Right now there's 3 points for the factory, which I'd love to have for myself. I've got a character and a mech sitting in the home base I got to start making use of later. But so far so good. That's going to end my turn. We're going to move on to the yellow faction. Alright, let's see what the yellow faction does here. So first off, the top one there won't happen. The next up is going to be a non-attacking mech move for the yellow faction. So this is going to be interesting because it's going to be picking up the one that's the closest to the Automa's base first off. So we got to figure out which one that is. That's going to likely be, let's see. So it's closest to the Automa's base, which is right there, and it's normal reading order. So that would be, I guess, this guy right here. It's the closest, this mech. So we're picking this guy up, taking him away. We're going to be finding valid hexes that are, there can't be any enemy combat units in the same spot. There can't be an Automa combat unit there because it's a non-attacking mech move. And it has to be the shortest distance from enemy combat unit. It has to be closest to the factory. So technically where it is where it's going to stay. It's a pick up and drop type situation. So it's one of those things where nothing changes at all for that action. And then we're going to come down here, go to the next line. It's 3 bolster. So they're going to jump from 0 to 3. They're also going to gain a worker, so one of the workers are coming back out, and we gain a popularity, which is awesome. So we're going up to 8, which hopefully keeps us in the second section. But they are going to go up a star, so this is going to jump to here, and you can see we're only 1 more star move away, or potentially 1 more card away from ending the game, where they'll get their last star out. So that's going to end the yellow faction. We'll move to the white. All right, here we go with the white faction. We'll flip their card over. And it looks like it's a worker move. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So we know it's going to be a worker from the home base. And it's going to be one with the most Automa units surrounding it. So we're just going to find that location. Right now we have right here, looks like the best one because it's 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 here surrounding it. There's 2 here, 1 here, 2 here, nobody here. I can't put a, yeah, actually it's going to be here because this is 3 regardless. This is the most, so boom, right there. So they're just taking another spot. We're going to go to the next line here. It's a 4 bolster. That's huge. That's really bad for me. So it's going to jump this to 9. So now they've got some serious power to use later on. And we're going to bolster actually because we have the enlist. So it was kind of nice, I guess. And then the star is going to increase. And look at that. The star increasing is going to put them at their next star, which means they have 2 more left. But they just gained 1 as well, so they've got 4. And that is pretty quick. That is the end of their turn. We're going to come right back around to mine. So let's come back around to my turn, and really right now I could end the game. I could actually, on my last turn here, I could just go like this, and I could choose not to produce, and I could go ahead and enlist, and enlisting right now would gain the last star. I could stop the game. The problem is, I don't control that many locations, and I really want to control a lot more so that I can gain a lot of points, because if I don't, well, I'm just kind of capping myself in terms of points if I end it early. So I'm going to go ahead, actually, I'm going to do a move. I'm going to delay the end of the game and try to get, I'm going to do a move, because gaining an extra star for me is only 4 points, but just by moving 3 units into, or even 2 units into new spaces, I gain more points that way. So I'm going to do a move action, which allows me to move 3 different units. I got to do this strategically so I can get the most out of it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mech here, and I'm going to move a 1 worker with them, and I'm going to move to, let's see, I'm going to probably go, let's take this worker here, and then so it's a 1 move with my mech. I'm going to drop this worker off, which costs nothing, leave him here. I'm going to take this worker here, I'm going to move it to here. And that's going to be it, I think. That's pretty much where we're going to stop. So that'll work perfect. So now what I'm doing is I'm basically creating a little bit of a buffer zone for my area so I can control it against these other guys. That was 1 move because I moved the mech, dropped off the worker, and kept going. So I have 2 more moves to do. So the question is, where do I want to put the rest? One other move I'll do is I'll take a worker from here and I'll move him here. So that's going to give me another point. So now I've just gained 2 more territories. And technically, if I wanted to, I could actually move this worker that's here, swim across the lake to this area over here. So I'm going to do that too. So I'm really going to spread myself out. That's going to give me an extra 9 points. So that's pretty good. And I think that's where I'm going to stop. And I cannot do the bottom action of this because I don't have the oil, and that's pretty much going to be everything for my turn. Let's move on to the yellow faction. All right, yellow faction, let's see what you do. This could end the game depending on what happens. So the top section of this card is not the faction, so they won't be doing that first one. Second up is the, that's going to be an encounter factory, so that's going to be in regards to the character. So the character for yellow faction is right here. What they're really looking for at this point is to either get to the factory, but it already has gotten to the factory before, and this isn't to incite any type of combat. It's going to be trying to go after encounter tokens as well. So encounter tokens on the board that are inside of the valid neighborhoods would only be this one. This one's too far away from their guys, and this one over here is way too far. So this character is going to pick up, move, drop over here, and steal this encounter token, knocking it off the board. So, just like that, that's pretty much all the character's going to do, which is good because it just got it out of my hair a little bit. And we're going to move on to the next portion of the card, which is going to be, I've got this card over here actually, it's another combat card for them, so that's not good because it's going to bolster their ability to do well in combat. They got 3 now, so they gained a lot over the last while. Plus 2 more coins, ugh, worst. So I'll take 3 away and give them a 5, I think. It's because I'm running low on the 1s, so we'll go, where's the 5? Actually, it looks like I'm running low on the 5s too, so maybe I'll take another 5 away and just give them a 10. There we go. They've got a lot of coins. So what is this? 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 coins? Oh my goodness. Okay, and then they also are going... I don't get that enlist bonus because I'm still waiting to do that as my last. It's going to trigger the end of the game, so I don't get that. And they are going to move up, and oh, look at that. They just triggered the end of the game. So their card actually triggered it. So I kind of was playing a little bit of a balance there as to, should I go ahead and trigger the end of the game myself or not? But look at that. It was totally worth it because I was able to spread myself out in 3 different hexes. That's going to give me an additional, at the end of the game, 3 points. That's 9 points in difference, which instead of just 1 extra star, which would be worth 4. So that was way more worth it for me. But look at that. They've triggered the last star, so the yellow faction has completed the game first, and we're going to go ahead now, and I'm going to tally up all the scores and find out who won this game of Scythe. So just before we go ahead and tally up the points, which I'm really excited to do, I want to make mention of the fact I made a mistake in terms of how I talked about the factory and what it was worth. It's not just worth 3 points, it's literally worth controlling 3 actual territories having the factory. So the white faction is going to get counted for 3 territories for this 1 territory. That's crazy. That's going to factor into the end game scoring as well, but I'm glad it wasn't the yellow faction that got it because I'm way more scared of the yellow faction at this point. Alright, so it's time to now tally up our playthrough to see how well or bad I did. So I'm just going to go ahead here. We're going to set up to write this stuff out. So what you guys are seeing here is me tallying up the score. Of course, this is the most unprofessional way to do it, but I've got white, yellow, blue across the top, coins, stars, territories, resources, and then a total at the bottom. I've already bundled these all up, so I'm not going to go through the scoring in the video because it's very straightforward. But I want to show you guys who won and kind of give a little bit of anticipation as to who you think might have won. So start your guessing now. So we're going to go with the white faction first. So in terms of coins, the white faction had 18 coins. coins. The yellow faction had 27 coins, which is insane. My faction had 17 coins. This is what point values they were for how many coins you had. For stars, we were all in the second category, so we all were getting the same amount. I was getting 4 points per star. So for the yellow faction, had the most stars, coming in with 6 stars at a value of 4 each. The yellow faction has 24 points. The white faction got 16 points because they only got 4 stars. And I got 20 points because I had 5 stars. Coming along to the territories that we controlled, currently the blue faction here had 32 points. That was me. So I'm showing you guys what I got first. 40 for the white, and remember again, they got their factory location, instead of just counting for 1 territory, counted for 3 territories, which gave them that extra leg up in the territories pile. So maybe if I was playing this again, I would have gone after those guys for that, because that could have actually helped me out quite a bit. Going for the yellow faction, they got 36. So you can see things are getting a little dicey here. We're getting to the resources now. Of course, the yellow and blue, or sorry, the yellow or white and yellow, I should say, do not get any bonuses for resources. Normally in a player game, you'd actually tally up and you get points based on what bracket you were in for popularity. For my case, I was getting, for every 2 resources I cashed in, I believe I was getting 2 points each, and I had 5, so technically I only get 4 points. So I got 4 extra points here. Then we're gonna go ahead to final tally. So the white ended up with a total of 74. The yellow ended up with a total of 87, and I ended up with a total of 73. Yep, I lost, and I lost so close to the white faction. It's not even funny. Kind of makes me sad, because I thought the whole way along that I was actually ahead of the white faction. The yellow one was the one I knew I had to worry about, but I didn't end up. I thought I might get second. I didn't even get second. So you can go ahead and see that just playing against the Automa level difficulty, you're going to have a good challenge going into it, and you're not always going to win, so that's pretty cool. And there's 2 other levels of difficulty above that to make it even tougher if you want to, so you can improve your strategy, your movement, because there's always ways to improve how you play the game. Anyway, that is going to wrap up this edition, or this showcase for Scythe. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I had a ton of fun, even though I lost. It was great. I really hope this helps you guys get the game to the table, helps you learn the majority of the rules. You saw them in action. If there's anything that you wanted to ask or saw that I missed in this finale, let me know in the comments below, because this is the finale for the Scythe showcase. Thank you guys so much for your support along the way, and as always, keep on rolling solo.